Okay, it's time to kick off the ABCs of board games, where I'm going to go through and talk about a game for every single letter of the alphabet. Here is A through G. Hello and welcome to Nelson All Over. I'm Nelson and today we are starting out our ABC journey. And so what this means is that I'm going to be talking about a board game for each letter of the alphabet. This video is going to be A through G. Now these are not my favorite games for that specific letter. It's just a game that I picked up and I wanted to talk about. So some of them I like, some of them I dislike. But yeah, that's kind of the idea of the video. So we're going to start out with A. Let's see if I can Rodney Smith this. Okay. I'm not a professional. Rodney would have caught it straight up. My A pick is Aeon's End. So this is a cooperative deck building game where players are taking on the role of mages and they are going against these asymmetric villains. The mages are also asymmetric, and so there's a lot of replayability in this game. When you sit down at the table, you pick out 9 different cards that you're building a Dominion style card pool with, that you are going to be building your deck around for the remainder of the game. And then utilizing your mage's abilities and those cards, you're looking to try and defeat the villain, the monster. I kind of forgot what they're called right now. So I really like this game. This is the Outcast version. Most of the expansions are standalone. This is the only one that I have. Actually, I think I have the original game and maybe one other expansion downstairs in a box, but I have not opened those yet. So this is the only one I have. I've played through the entirety of this box. Really phenomenal stuff. All the mages are really interesting. The villains that they have are so different, so wildly different. You have to adjust your play style for each one of those, and it feels like it's always fresh and always new. The combinations of plays, because you have asymmetry on both sides of the table, just leads to so much replayability. And so with Aeon's End, I'm excited to continue on and build more and grow the collection that I have of Aeon's End, because I can just see this game getting better and better. But my A pick is Aeon's End. For my B pick, I got Between Two Cities. And this is published by Stonemaier Games, and I believe that this is probably one of the best gateway games, or the best games to get new players into board games out there. In this game, you are building 2 cities, and so you are actually sitting between 2 cities, which is where the name comes from, but you're building a city with the neighbor on your right and a city with the neighbor on your left. And so the reason that I think that this is so good for new players is that if you have experienced players at the table as well as new players, you can put the new players in the middle of 2 experienced players. This is a tile drafting game, and so if there are any questions, you always have, the new player always has someone that they can ask questions to the right or to the left of them. The game plays only in about 20 minutes, and it teaches set collection, drafting. There's just a lot of rules and game mechanics packed into this simplified game that both new players and veteran players really enjoy. Like I said, you play it in 20 minutes, you're probably going to want to pick it right back up and play it one more time. But Between Two Cities is just such a solid game for what it does. This is one of my favorite games I have added to my collection because of that. Not necessarily, it's not the best game in my collection. It's not in my top 10 games of all time, but I love what it does for my collection. It adds that game that can be so good in bringing people into the hobby. And so Between Two Cities is B. For C, we've got the Castles of Burgundy, and we're ignoring articles here, so Castles starts with a C. So Castles of Burgundy is actually I think one of the first games that my wife ever got me, and so this one holds a special place in my heart. But Castles of Burgundy is a Stefan Feld design, and it's a dice placement kingdom building game, which, like, now that I'm thinking about it, Between Two Cities and Castles, you're both building areas and land and communities, and so not intentional at all, but just kind of a fun coincidence. But Castles of Burgundy I really appreciate because it's a dice placement game where the dice can be manipulated pretty consistently, so you have ways to manipulate dice. So a bad roll doesn't necessarily kill you. However, you are going to be rewarded if you don't manipulate those dice. So you have like workers that can modify the dice value, and you can utilize those if there's something you absolutely need. But what I love about this game is the blend of strategy and tactics. So you have an overall strategy of what you need to do in the game. You need to fill out this map in a specific order to score you the most points. Now, the tactical decisions in this game come from what you're rolling every single turn and how you utilize those dice and make decisions on, okay, I could use a worker to change this to a 4 and take the action that I know I need. However, I don't think anybody at the table is going to remove that action from me, so maybe I wait one round and I try and roll one more time and see if we can do that. So I always think that the winner of this game comes down to who can make the best tactical decisions and blend it in with their overall strategy, and that right there means that this game, despite it not being the prettiest game on my shelf, has such high replayability and an absolute incredible game if you are looking for something that's like an hour to an hour and a half Euro dice building game. Castles of Burgundy. For my D game, we have got Dice Throne. This is the Marvel version, but just Dice Throne in general. Dice Throne is a system that I have often described as Battle Yahtzee. Marvel Dice Throne, and well, any Dice Throne, you are taking on the role of one of these characters, another game where it's highly asymmetric. That's something I really appreciate and enjoy in games. So that explains why we're seeing a couple of these in this list. But Dice Throne, you take on the role of a character that has a specific board that you can activate after rolling dice. The reason I say it's Battle Yahtzee is it follows that same style of dice rolling where you roll 5 dice, you can re-roll any of those up to 2 more times, and then based on your final result determines what you can activate. And so if you get a small straight, you get to activate 1 power, or if you roll all 6s, you get to unlock the ultimate power and do something absolutely crazy and insane. But Dice Throne does a fantastic job of making you feel like you're playing an absolutely different character every single time. So Scarlet Witch can play very, very different than Thor, who plays very different than Loki. And the way that they've been able to differentiate all of these characters has been very, very impressive. It feels very balanced, it feels very fun, and not only am I excited to play new characters, but I'm excited to come back and play old characters again. And so Dice Throne in general plays in about 20 to 30 minutes. It's a head-to-head. Well, actually, I think you can play a multiplayer, but I feel like it shines in like a head-to-head setting. And this game is one that I have not played too much of, probably under 10 plays, but it's one that I'm always excited to get to the table, and I'm excited to try more characters. So D is Dice Throne. For my E pick, we're gonna go with a game that I have not played a lot of recently, and that's Evolution. So in Evolution, you are creating a animal species. I kind of think of them as dinosaurs, but I don't necessarily think that they are all dinosaurs. But you are creating a species and competing for food at the watering hole with other players. So food in this game is victory points, and the trait cards that you're playing on your different species determines how you interact and get food. And so some of them are gonna go grab food earlier than everybody else. Some of them are going to be able to grab food from a different source. There are carnivores in here which don't even grab food from the water hole at all. They eat other animals. And so you have to figure out a way to protect yourself from carnivores at the table. Evolution can be a pretty mean game. I played a lot of this when I first got it. It was one of those first, 20 games in my collection. And so I played a lot of this game. However, I have probably not played this in about 4 years, just because as my gaming tastes have evolved, I've realized that I don't necessarily love this game. Now, it's a game that I would be happy to go back and play again, but it's not something that's going to be consistently hitting my table over and over again, just because of how mean, how long, and then also just how not necessarily replayable it is. And so I think Evolution's an interesting design. If you like the theme of Evolution, it's going to be a really cool pickup for you. But for me, it's in my collection just as kind of a nostalgia feel. Also, it's pretty beat up, so I don't want to trade it. And it's just a harder game to get to the table. But Evolution is my E pick, probably the first downer on the list, but at one point I very much enjoyed this game, and it's just kind of fallen off that enjoyment level for me now. For my F game, we are picking a game that I also have not played a lot recently, or at all actually, but that's not because I don't love it, it's just because it's really hard to get to the table, and that is Food Chain Magnate. In Food Chain Magnate, you are competing against other players and running a fast food empire. The basis of the game is that you're hiring different roles or different people for jobs that will change the actions that you can take round over round. The way that the game works is you have to fulfill the entire demand of a household in order to serve them. And so if they want a pizza, a lemonade, and a hamburger, you have to be able to provide each one of those in order to actually sell to that house. And so marketing in this game, you're telling everybody what they want, and then you have the the cooks that are making the hamburgers and pizzas, and then drink carriers which are getting the drinks, and then there's people that manipulate the prices because it's a very cutthroat game. It's a game that the houses are going to buy from the cheapest option available. So you're trying to undercut your competition, and it can be so mean. It can be so mean. So one of the quotes that I've heard them associated with them is that if you cannot lose the game on the first turn, why even play the first turn? And that is so very true in this game. I've played games where people have lost turn 1, and it's a long game. It's probably around 4 hours. And so if you sit there and you know you've lost in the first 20 minutes, it can be a very feel bad game. However, if you have a dedicated group that is okay with learning from each game and growing in their gaming experience, then I feel like this is a super satisfying game for that type of group. And I really want to play more of this game. It's just so hard to get to the table. But Food Chain Magnate is just that heavy economic game that I love. And for our last game on today's list, we have our G, and we are going to go with Gaia Project. Gaia Project is the follow-up to Terra Mystica. So Terra Mystica and Gaia Project have a lot of very similar mechanics. Gaia Project I picked over Terra Mystica. I've actually never played Terra Mystica, but when I was picking between the two, because I knew I wanted to try and play one of these games, Gaia Project won it over because everyone online was kind of saying that this works much better at 2 players, which is where the majority of my player counts are. And so Gaia Project, you are exploring space, you're researching technologies. Again, another game with a highly asymmetric player power. So every single faction is going to play differently in this game, which just, one, increases replayability, but also makes you and forces you into different tactical decisions throughout the game. You have people who are really wanting to go after technology, people who are all about exploring. And so, one, how you're going to play your faction and how you're going to play your faction with other factions at the table. It can be a game where there's races to different planets to inhabit, and it's just a very fun game. Probably my favorite thing about this game is how it feels like a domino effect. So in round 1, and there are 6 rounds in the game, it feels like you can't do a whole lot. But as you start to push into round 3 or 4, it feels like if you can just get that one resource, it unlocks 6 more actions for you. And so a lot of this game is, how can I figure out how to get that one more resource? And if you can get that resource, it dominoes into a whole cascade of actions that allows you to terraform this planet, that allows you to research a new technology, that allows you to do all of these new things. And it all hinges on that 1 or 2 resources. And so I love that puzzle. I think that puzzle is so very satisfying to try and find, okay, I need 3 more money. If I can get 3 more money, then I can build this planetary institute. And there's a lot going on in this game, so there's a lot of ways to get money, but how can you get it the most efficiently and before other players can? And Gaia Project is a game that has been in my top 5, and it currently is not. And I think that's just more of a function of me not playing it a lot recently. I did just play it again a couple of weeks ago. Gaia Project probably is that 6th spot and flirts with the top 5 pretty consistently. And so Gaia Project is one of my favorite games of all time. And if you like Terra Mystica, or if you like that type of style of play, check out Gaia Project. It's such a gem. It's such a gem. This one is by Z-Man. I think it's now published by Capstone. So this is a little bit older of a version, but yeah, so my G pick is Gaia Project. And there you have it. That is A through G. Those are games that I just wanted to kind of talk about. I love talking about board games, and so this I thought was just a fun way to do it. If you're interested in the rest of the alphabet, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and we're going to be posting these over probably the next month or so. We'll be getting these out and talking about the rest of the alphabet. So I look forward to talking about 19 more games. I may cheat and put maybe 1 or 2 more in there, but you know, I make the rules, so it doesn't really matter. But until then, I hope you have a fantastic time, happy gaming, and I'll see you around. Peace.